Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor gives you sports betting tips. I'm your host, Professor Sides, and in this episode of Major League Baseball picks, I will outline the prices that I think make for good bets. This is the predictive mathematical model I've built that I affectionately call Sideline for games scheduled to be played on Monday, June 26th, 2023. In case you're new here, check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new for some explanations and community rules. Remember, if you're interested in projections of picks for every single game, sign up on Dub Club. That link is in the show description. Cost under $1 per day. You'll receive money line, run line, totals, numbers needed for A-grade picks on all that nonsense. Access to our Discord chat, a bunch of good information, weather information, park information, all sorts of stuff. Check it out if you haven't yet. Again, that link is in the show description. Remember that sports are unpredictable, so the discussion on this show projects a typical game and is not trying to forecast it to a T, as that'd be a foolish and impossible goal. I feel like some of you need to listen to that part. Right? I'm not trying to project a game to the T. Talk about 4 games here, and like I'm always saying, I don't know exactly how they're going to go. I'm not trying to make a prediction. What I'm trying to do is say at these prices, these are good long-term investments. And I do truly believe, there's no right side. There's no wrong side. There's right prices and wrong prices. Now, we can disagree on what those prices are. That's totally fine. You don't have to agree with everything I say. And if you think it's 10, 15 cents different than what I think, that's totally acceptable. However we get there, but that's the mentality that's going to be key to growing your bankroll instead of draining it. We will have ups and downs. We saw it here on Sunday. Basically a break-even week for us here this last week, Monday through Saturday, and then Sunday. Finally got a one-run winner, closing out the night with the Astros and extras, but they blew it and made us sweat a little bit. And there were a ton of bullpens that blew it for us. So we had the Mets, and they blew it. The Yankees, we had the Rangers, I guess, and they blew it. Someone else too, I can't remember at this point. And so, we had some of that bad variance on Sunday with the bullpens, and this just that stuff's going to happen. You can't foresee it, which is what I'm talking about. You can't look at a game like Sunday. If you remember here, the Sunday's Yankees Rangers game, and you can't look at that and say there was a right side or a wrong side, because it was a tight game. One team had the lead, and then they blew it, and the other team won. And I think trying to figure that out is just thinking too hard. What there is good prices and bad prices. And, in the long run, it's going to balance out for us. It just didn't work out for us Sunday. Suffered our first losing week in either 6 or 7 weeks. So that kind of comes to a close. We look to start up another stretch of winning weeks here. Unfortunately, we can't promise you're going to win every day or every week because of that good and bad variance, but the long run profitability is there. And hopefully we can get back to our winning ways starting up this week here on Monday. Just real quick, I'm recording this here on Sunday night. It is June 25th. This is the I don't even know the words to use to say it. It's the 1-year anniversary of our son Connor, his birth and I guess death. He was stillborn, past 40 weeks, and I hesitate to use the word birthday because birthday implies celebration, and when you have a baby that's stillborn, you're not really celebrating. And I hesitate to use the word death because when you hear that, you think about the times you had with someone, and when you have a child who's stillborn, you don't mourn, what you're going to miss. You mourn what you never got to have and you never got to see. And, I just share that. I'm always real with y'all, with life and with the picks. Like I said, I'm not trying to tell you, there's no money back guarantees, promising winning picks or any of that nonsense. Like you hear a lot out here, I keep it real. We're always just looking to make smart plays, smart decisions in life. And so I just share a little bit of this with y'all as well. Thank y'all for being here with me. A lot of you interact with me and a lot of you don't, but I see y'all out there watching and it means a lot to me, and this community and this show has come a long way in the last year. And, it helped get me through. This show gave me something to live for on on days that were tough. And there were a lot of tough days, and there will still be tough days to come, of course, for both me and Mrs. Professor. Thankfully, we do have a little one who's now 3, and she was obviously a ray of sunshine for us. But I just wanted to say thank you for those of you who are watching me here during this baseball season, who were with me last baseball season, and in the sports in between as well, and all the sports we do in the fall. But I just this community and this group will always have a special place in my heart, because this last year there were days when knowing I was going to get up and run a baseball model or try to work on improving a baseball model and make picks for y'all was the motivation to get out of bed during some hard times. So I just want to say thank you. And if you're unaware of the story, I'll put the link in the show description of the website where I kind of outline what happened. But without further ado, though, we will get to the show. Obviously, though, got to get to those reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. If you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And if you turn on notifications, you won't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. You can see how I scale my picks on screen and in the Google Sheet that has all the season results. I've got by week, by day, got some team ratings, pitcher ratings, all sorts of fun stuff. That link's also in the show description. I got a lot of fun links in the show description. If you haven't checked them out yet, check those out. But as always, with the scaling, with the picks, with everything, take what you like and leave the rest. Unfortunately, no day games here on Monday, so we'll get to the evening slate here. 7:05 p.m. Eastern, Reds at the Orioles. Should be a nice night in Baltimore, around 70 degrees, maybe upper 60s for most of this game. Wind will start off blowing out pretty strong, but there's some chance of rain as the front moves through. That wind's going to be across, so we might have a little bit of delay in this one. It's not going to really drop the temperature that much, but there are definitely some concerns if you're betting the total on this game, because if the rain holds off and that wind stays blowing out to start, it's going to create a pretty hitter-friendly environment to start. If that front moves through earlier and we miss the rain, but the wind has now shifted across, or we get delayed by an hour or two, we're really going to see less of a favorable run scoring environment. I say all that to say that the model projects 9.3 runs, but I think that's a little on the high side, because when I look at this, I haven't coded the model in to be exactly specific enough to kind of say most likely what's going to happen is we're either going to have if we have the wind out, we're going to have the rain, and we won't get those together. So I kind of think that might be a little bit high. I think realistically a good projection might be more in the upper 8s or 9s. It doesn't really matter for us. The current total right now is 9.5. But if, you might be eyeing it under 9.5, keeping an eye on this weather. If it gets up to 10, definitely be eyeing it under 10 for this one. Not because the pitching's great. I just don't think this hitting is set up to succeed. The Orioles offense has gotten extremely left-handed heavy, and that takes what I have as this Orioles offense, I think, is a pretty good offense. They rate well above league average overall, but against lefties, they dropped down slightly below league average. And the Reds kind of the same way. I've talked about them being pretty left-handed heavy. They get a ding against the lefty as well. So I think the offenses are going to be, not that the two lefties that are starting this game are good, but at least as a left-handed pitcher, knowing you're going up against a bunch of lefties gives you a better chance for success. Brandon Williamson for the Reds, I'm not a huge fan of. 5.40 ERA on the season, and the underlying metrics say that's about who he is. I don't think he's a very good pitcher. Cole Irvin for the Orioles, a 7.71 ERA on the season, but I think there's value in backing the Orioles because it's only in 5 starts, and the advanced metrics show a much more positive picture for him. I think there's value in the Orioles because they're looking at Cole Irvin and they're thinking that him and Williamson are pretty equivalent pitchers, and I don't think that's the case. The model says that Irvin is a full standard deviation better than Williamson. The Orioles bullpen is definitely better than the Reds bullpen by about a couple standard deviations, according to Sideline. I was watching the Reds play the Braves the other day, and I think it was the Reds broadcast was mentioning about the Reds relievers and how they've done a really good job of giving up leads and allowing the offense to come back. And a lot of those wins, it's kind of what was happening. It was the Reds outscoring teams. It wasn't about the relievers. The Orioles definitely have an edge there. And even though both teams are left-handed heavy, and this Reds offense has looked really good, I still think this Orioles offense is pretty underrated. They still kind of seem to be flying pun intended, a little bit. Orioles, get it, under the radar here. This Orioles team is really good at home. I'm on the Orioles at minus 141. It's an A grade pick. Model says it should be Orioles minus 170 and that they would win the 63% of the time. So as much love as there is for the Reds, and it's been an incredible streak, and I think they're a solid team. I just think, they played the Braves well. But I think they're going up against the same situation against the Orioles as the Braves. I'm not really sure that. If you're a Braves fan, you might be upset by me saying that, but I mean, the Braves are good. And this Orioles team is good. You look at the record. I mean, they're the real deal. They were pretty solid last year. They've just kept improving. This Orioles team at home, I think the Reds are going to have the same problem against the Orioles as they did against the Braves. They might be able to hang around. This team's not bad. But in the end, the Orioles' superior bullpen, I think, makes them a smart play. Again, minus 141 is a great investment, A-grade pick on the Orioles. Anything better than minus 159 or better gets that designation. 7:10 p.m. Eastern, Brewers at the Mets. Nice night in New York, upper 60s for this one. Wind will be blowing out for the entirety of this game at almost 10 miles an hour. So that's going to boost the runs by about as much as that park offsets them from a pitcher standpoint. It's a pitcher-friendly park there in New York. But tonight it's going to play here more like a normal night. Because of the wind blowing out, offsetting the fact that plays like a pitcher-friendly park with slightly larger dimensions and a decent amount of foul territory. Colin Rea versus Justin Verlander for this one, and both of these pitchers have ERAs in the mid to upper fours. The underlying metrics are pretty similar for both of them. It's just that, of course, Justin Verlander has a track record of being a much better pitcher historically, so I still have to say he's going to be the superior pitcher in this one. The Mets offense is definitely better than this Brewers offense. Relievers probably about a toss-up, but despite the Mets completely crapping the bet on Sunday, I'm going to go back to the Mets again here. Minus 175 is a B-grade pick. Model says it should be minus 176, so we're just barely eking into where it's playable for me. If it gets to minus 165, that's an A grade on the Mets, but at this point, I don't know if we're going to get there or not, whether it's minus 165, minus 175. I think the Mets are worth an investment. I'm just not going quite as heavy on them because I don't think the value proposition is quite there at a price like minus 175. And with regards to total, model says 8.9, so I'm going over 8. It is juiced a little bit. I want that push protection on the 8. This could easily be a 6-2 or 5-3 game, and so I don't really want to go over 8.5. But even with a little bit of juice, I will go over 8. I think that wind blowing out gets an extra couple balls out. The Brewers will put up a couple on Verlander. He's become home run susceptible, but Colin Rea being a below average starting pitcher in this Mets offense, should be able to get plenty of home runs themselves. 7:20 p.m. Eastern, Twins at the Braves. Warm night in Atlanta to start with. Going to be almost 90 degrees to start. Going to be closing in the upper 70s. Wind will be blowing out at 5 to 15 miles an hour, kind of dying down as the night goes along. But it might be a little bit more across than out. That's something to kind of keep an eye on. Sonny Gray and Spencer Strider, and as good of a year as Sonny Gray has had, 2.56 ERA, the advanced metrics and his projection are much closer to 4. He's done well, but I still think that Spencer Strider is the much better pitcher. He's had a couple of bad outings, but I look at Spencer Strider, I look at his 3.93 ERA, and then I look at the underlying metrics. His xFIP is 2.90, and he really reminds me of what I preached about Kevin Gausman months ago. If you go back, month and a half ago, I was kind of writing Gausman every single start, and I was saying, look, his ERA may not be that pretty, and he's not getting the respect he deserves, but it's just a couple bad innings, a couple bad outings. I still think this guy's legit, and I stand by that with Spencer Strider. He's had a couple of rougher starts, bumping that ERA up, but the underlying metrics, when you look under the hood, are there to suggest he is still an elite pitcher. I've got him as the much better pitcher between these two starters. Again, even though Gray has been impressive this year, just as a reminder, ERA is a stat that tells you what did happen. It's maybe not the best thing that's going to tell you what will happen. And going forward, we project Strider on average to be a better pitcher than Sonny Gray. And it's not particularly close. Additionally, this Braves offense is definitely better than the Twins offense. Relievers probably a little better as well. The Braves have every edge at home. I'm backing them at minus 179. It's a B grade. I locked this in and gave this out to our dub clubbers. By the time I started recording 2-3 hours later, I noticed this price was already up into the minus 190s. So hopefully it goes back down for you if you haven't already got it, or hopefully you're with us on Dub Club and you got a price like minus 179, which is solid B grade value, B plus grade value. Minus 177 would be an 8 grade. Models should be minus 189. So really minus 190 is about as high as I want to go personally. If you want to play off the steam a little bit, go for it. But I just don't want to play this too high into the minus 200s for sure. But as long as we're in this minus 180 range, I think it's a really good investment. The Braves just should have an advantage everywhere across the field, and being home, I think they're a solid pick. Model projects 9 runs. Current total that I'm seeing is 8.5. If it drops to 8, I could go over, simply because we're going to have such a warm night, wind blowing out. The pitching's good for sure, and the bullpens are good. But on a night like this, there's a chance this part plays pretty small. Right now, the model says that the weather is going to give us a 7% boost in the expected number of runs. If we wake up tomorrow here, by the time you're watching this, maybe Monday morning, I'll run that update for our Dub Clubbers. And if the wind's blowing more out than across, that number could easily jump into the double digits with regards to the percent run increase. So I'd be looking over. I'm not playing it over 8.5, but I'd be looking over just because the weather is going to create some value there. You might get this bet down a little bit because the strength of the pitchers. And if it wasn't for the weather, I would agree with that. But if it does get bet down to 8, there's a decent chance over is a good look here, because balls might be flying again. Though, if you're with us on Dub Club, check the morning update, and I will outline that and make sure that we're all on the same page going forward. And then wrapping up this show, 8 p.m. Eastern, Tigers at the Rangers, hot in Arlington. My goodness, it's been hot here in North Texas. I guess it's June. What do you expect? Expecting the roof to be closed here. Matthew Boyd versus Andrew Heaney, a pair of pretty average lefties, and the ERAs wouldn't necessarily tell that story, but Andrew Heaney probably not as good as that 3.98 ERA, whereas Matthew Boyd is definitely much better than his 5.37 ERA. I think these pitchers are pretty rounding error the same. Heaney projects a tiny bit better, but it's not by much. It's, like I said, it's rounding error. Of course, the difference is while the bullpens of these teams are both okay, have their ups and downs, have their moments. Obviously, the Rangers' offense is massively better than the Tigers. I mean, that is the big difference here. And that's why the Rangers are favored. They should be favored. Model says they should be favored by a price of minus 180, which right now is kind of a non-starter. Rangers are minus 186, Tigers are plus 171, and neither one presents value. So instead, I'm going to focus on the under here. I'm seeing some 9s out there with better juice. I'm going to go under 9.5. I want that win on 9. 9 is a pretty common outcome here at minus 122. If you want to go under 9, make sure it's good juice. Make sure it's at least minus 105. I'd really hope for even money. I'd cross my fingers for even money, but at least minus 105, or at most, I guess that you should say minus 105. I don't, negative numbers and getting bigger is it's too late in the night for me to think about this. But I just don't want to pay too much juice on the 9. Model projects 8.7. The bottom line here is that this Tigers offense just can really struggle to score runs sometimes. We've had some easy unders with him this last weekend against the Twins, and of course had an under blown because of a 3 spot put up in the 10th. But in general, Tigers aren't going to score a lot of runs. Their bullpen is respectable. It's not got a lot of sexy names in it, but it's been doing a decent job. It's got some depth, and I think Boyd, is good enough to prevent the Rangers from scoring 7. Obviously the Rangers offense is so good, you expect them to score off anybody. But Boyd's good enough to not get crushed. Rangers probably put up 4 to 5 runs in this one. But this Tigers, offense, Heaney, like I said, I don't think he's that much better than average. I don't think he's as good as that ERA, but this Tigers offense isn't the team to take advantage of that, right? This is a team that if you're a guy like Heaney, you're looking to improve upon that. It doesn't really matter if you've been lucky so far this season. He's got a chance to improve that ERA against this Tigers offense. And this Rangers bullpen, can be scary. I've talked about that, they just got through blow one to the Yankees here, but we just have to remember, and it goes back in the Mets too. We just have to remember that, a team's never as bad as they look at their worst, and they're never as bad as they just made you upset, right? And sometimes you can get value on that. I'm not saying you should blindly fade the team that just lost, but there is something to be said for if enough bettors see one thing and start going that direction, it can kind of create a value situation. I'm not saying that's necessarily what's happening here. I'm just reminding everybody here that I know the Rangers bullpen just blew it for us, but They're not the worst bullpen in the league, and facing the Tigers, they should perform better. So I'm not really overly scared about this under. I'm not really, you can look first 5 under if you want, and take that part of the equation out of it. But I like the full game under here a little bit better, simply because this Rangers offense can put up crooked numbers, and I don't really know if they're going to put up a crooked number. They're likely to put up a 3-spot winning. They're going to do it in the 4th or the 6th. I don't really know, right? So I just like the full game here. This Tigers team has been, pretty under lately. Their pitching's been decent enough, and their offense just isn't very good. So under 9.5 here. Again, model projects 8.7. And that's all I've got for you here today. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can enjoy all the sports betting content provided on this channel. It's dropped right into your feed. I'll be back again tomorrow with more sports betting content. And until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.